Welcome to the M26FIT Podcast, where we explore the connection between having a strong mind and a strong body. Today's guest is Robert Haugh, physiotherapist. Welcome to the podcast, mate.
Thanks for having me, Magnus. Cheers, mate.
Mate, how's your day been?
Mate, busy as always. Back to and from the Gold Coast this morning, doing a presentation to a group of construction workers, or soon to be, in and around workplace health, and then back into the clinic and seeing patients back to back until I'm here. So,
yeah, mate, thanks for coming.
Cheers.
So, to kick us off, give us a bit of the backstory, mate. Share a bit of your backstory for us.
Yeah, so backstory with me. Well, one, I'm a physiotherapist. That's what I do for work. But I actually did my studies up in Townsville. I grew up in the little town of Ingham, which is about an hour north of Townsville. And I spent most of my life there. Did my high school, did my primary schooling up there, and I loved it up there. Stayed up there for JCU, and then came down to Brizzy and started work at Inspire, and I've been there for about 6 years now. So, personally, I've got a wife who I've been married to for now 3 years, and I've also got now a little baby. So I've got a 9-week-old son at home, Tommy. So, I'm enjoying that.
Hey, congratulations,
Cheers.
First time dad.
Yep, that's it. It's been an awesome process. It's been an awesome experience.
Oh, mate, that's fantastic. Now, I know you love the human anatomy.
Yep.
Tell us what got you started in physiotherapy and the journey so far.
Yeah, so for me, the journey for physio started, I guess, when I figured out that I wasn't going to be Darren Lockyer. I really wanted to be a professional rugby league player. As we know, North Queenslanders love their rugby league. But that wasn't to be. I had a few injuries along the way early and when I was a kid, when I was playing rugby league. And that actually drew me towards physiotherapy. I actually had some pretty big injuries to both my legs. First injury happened when I was like 12. And I remember I didn't even get any rehab. I didn't have any physiotherapy done. And I look back on that now and I think that's kind of weird considering what I do. But just circumstances were that I didn't go through it. And I actually had to miss out on a year of sport and all those things. And then I actually encountered more physiotherapy with my second injury. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. I could do this. And it was a way in which I could stay connected to sport, which is just ingrained in me. And it's a way in which I can help people and just be involved every day with different people, which I enjoy also.
Yeah. So what position did you play in the rugby league?
I moved around a little bit. I actually started as a centre and I actually moved into the halves and I was a 5'8" for a little while. But then just got too big. Actually, 6'3" frame. They see that and they're like, no, you got to move inside. So, ended up playing in the back row by the end of my career. But then that wasn't to be.
That's nice. So when did you finish up rugby league?
Finished rugby league in and around grade 10, and then I actually went over to rugby union. So little town of Ingham got their first ever rugby union team, and they poached me. So I went over there, and I actually experienced a bit of rugby union, which was I actually enjoyed playing a lot more, playing the game. I personally can't stand watching it, but that might be because I'm a big Broncos fan. So that'll always be the sport I tend to watch or something, and whatnot. But yeah, rugby I actually really enjoyed. Rugby was great.
So when did you move to Brizzy?
Moved to Brizzy at the end of my last year of uni. So what was that? It must have been 2018 now. And I've been here ever since, just working at Inspire.
Yeah, nice. All right, a positive game-changing moment in your life.
Ooh. This is a big one. Positive game-changing moment was probably well, it's a couple. Geez, I could probably go more so. It was actually a point in university where I actually had a failed moment where I actually failed one of my courses, and it wasn't a big course at all. It wasn't my anatomy. It wasn't anything actually to do from a hands-on physiotherapy practice. It was one of those health science sort of courses that I went through, and I kind of just pushed it to the side, and I was so focused on all the other stuff that I actually failed that, and that was actually really big for me because that was actually probably one of the first times in my life where I actually found I probably actually had a decent loss or something that was actually a fail in my life. And I actually look back on that now and I actually look at that as a really big positive. Because that was a point in which there was some real adversity that I actually had to go and actually had to overcome. I had to go back and I had to repeat and I had to do another semester and I had to do all these things. And in the meantime, I had to find work. So I actually went and did a lot more part-time work at the time, which was great for me because I hadn't done a lot of part-time work between high school and uni. So I went and did that. And that sort of, and I say that some of the, I guess, the discipline and some of the lessons that I got from working part-time at the job I had at Woolies actually taught me a lot, and actually made me a lot better of a person just doing something like that. So I'd say that's probably one of the big positive things when you look back at it. At the time, it doesn't feel like it. At the time, it feels absolutely rubbish, especially when for someone like myself, especially as a young person with quite a big ego, and my achievements were really attached to that. Having that sort of get hit was big for me, as small as it seems now. But it actually had a massive positive effect on me, and I think it's really driven me to where I am now.
It's great to have those moments to reflect back on and see how it's shaped your character a bit as well along the way.
Absolutely.
All right, let's jump into the M26 at 26. You ready?
Here we go.
The top 3 attributes of a great coach or trainer, and the best coach that you've ever had.
Wow. So coach-wise, I have to start with my CEO, my current CEO. His name's Wayne Zivanek. He's my mentor. He's my coach. He's the person who's been able to sculpt me into the professional I am. In terms of, I guess, the traits, I would say discipline. I think you have to have the discipline yourself to be able to do the things that you're teaching. Consistency. So being able to be consistent in doing things every single day, that probably falls a little bit under discipline. And then also, I think just... there's always a tough one, a third one. But I would say... oh, that's hard. Come back to me on that one. Come back to me on that one.
Not a problem. Who's the smartest guy you've sat in a room with, and why?
Wayne. Wayne Zivanek, he's my coach. He's easily the smartest man I've sat in a room with. His ability to understand, when I say humans, I don't mean the human body. I mean just humans in general, their psychology, understand what makes people tick, understand business at the same time, but then also able to still hone his craft at the same time. So he's, he started as a personal trainer. He wasn't even a physio or an ex-phys or anyone that's gone to uni and done a degree. But if you ask the man something that's anatomical related, body related, anything physiologically related, he'll be able to tell you. When you've got all those 3 things going on, there's a reason why he's the boss, and he's a CEO, and he's the guy definitely, if you sit in a room with him, he's definitely the smartest man I've come across.
That could be the third attribute.
Absolutely. That's exactly right.
Is ability to read people.
Oh, mate. Huge.
Yeah.
That ability to have empathy, I guess you could probably put it as empathy. That's just a little bit of that. So being able to sit in someone else's shoes and understand where they're coming from, I guess you could put that a little bit under there. But then ability to, be able to understand what makes them tick. Yeah. How do you get the best out of someone? That's probably one of the best characteristics he has.
What's been the most important lesson that you've learned?
Probably humility. Yeah. Just the trait of humility. Like I said, I was a pretty young, brash, big ego type guy. It's probably got a little bit less as I've got. It's definitely gotten less as I've gotten older. But just having that ability to be humble, I think, is without a doubt that's the probably the best trait that I've been able to learn. And just to have the humility and be grateful for everything that I've got currently. That's probably been the biggest thing.
Could you remember an instance where you learned that lesson?
Yeah.
Perhaps?
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I can remember. I can't remember. You can put me on the spot remembering the exact instance, but basically it was, I think, a bit of an argument that I may have had with one of the other physios at work or something like that. And I was obviously in the wrong. And I remember Wayne sort of sitting me down and going, mate, you got to have a look at yourself and have a hard look at yourself. And it was a little bit of a bigger chat than that, but we'll leave it at that. Yeah. And he was able to pull me in a line and sort of get me thinking. And, I went away and, you had to really sort of reflect and sort of deeply think about that and kind of go back a little bit and look at all the moments in your life and being like, oh man, this is a lesson I need to learn. And ever since then, I think it's only served me well. It's huge.
Sometimes it's that first lesson and then it just has a bit of a seismic shift and all of a sudden you start to question those things moving forward. So
there's been some huge seismic shifts, the last couple of years.
Oh, mate, very insightful. So describe your discipline, your definition of discipline.
Basically doing hard things or doing doing things consistently, even when no one else is watching.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. So being able to do those things and do them despite not having an audience or something or something of that regard, that's how I view discipline. So do you go home and are you able to eat healthy when no one else is watching? Are you able to still exercise when no one's watching? There's people that always got to turn their Apple Watch on and they got to record their exercise. Yep. No, because you got to let everyone know, right? Or you got to Instagram it, or something like that. But no, do you do those things and can you do them without an audience? I think that's one of the biggest parts of discipline.
Couldn't agree more. You see the guys that when the coach is watching, for example, as soon as the coach turns their backs, they'll slow down and the effort reduces. But
yep,
keep it happening.
Absolutely.
Even when no one's watching.
Absolutely.
If you had to describe yourself in 3 words.
This is tough. I would say now I'm definitely humble. I would say I've definitely gotten to the point where I can call myself that. And I think that's an important one for me. I would also say I'm quite respectful. So I think I show respect to people quite well. I think I also demand that a little bit too. So I think that goes both ways. I also think I wouldn't call myself disciplined yet. That's one that I think we all strive towards.
Yep. Working towards it.
Yeah, working towards it. I would love to be able to call myself disciplined, but I won't call myself that yet. But I think also I've just I would say the 2 things: either loyalty, but also personable. I think I have the ability to sort of be a bit of a chameleon and get along with a lot of different people. So I think that helps me.
Do you think Wayne would agree with those 3?
I think Wayne now would agree with those. Yeah. I think
it's a good way of looking at it. Sometimes
Absolutely.
You're looking at yourself and you're going, well, what would my mentor? How would he describe me? So it's good to see that he'd agree with that.
Not disciplined yet, though.
No, I think with discipline, everybody's disciplined in certain areas of your life, and then there's other areas that you're always struggling with. I think holistically trying to be disciplined across the board in all of those areas is the challenge, and that's the goal.
There's levels to it, right? Like, there's levels to it. Some people might look at me and go, you're disciplined. And I go, no.
Compared to...
And then I look at someone like Wayne and I'm like, oh, he's disciplined. Or I look at, some other guys in the company, I'm like, they're disciplined. And I'm like, I'm not there yet. Yeah. Not ready to call myself that yet.
The greatest decision that you've ever made?
Well, the greatest decision was probably to have kids, I guess, really. I mean, that's the best decision I've ever made. Like... it's been the best experience of my life so far, and it's only been 9 weeks, so I haven't even got to some of the other parts of it yet. But just that decision alone, I think, has to be the best. And then next to obviously making the decision to marry my wife at the same time, those 2 things will never be trumped. Family always sits above everything else. So every other decision is great, but those 2 things, they'll always be at the top.
Becoming a father for the first time, it's hard to describe in words, isn't it?
Mate, that's exactly right. And it's everything everyone says. Everyone says it's the the best thing you ever do, and it's the greatest experience you'll ever have. And you go, yeah, I can see that, of course, blah blah blah. And then it happens, and it's like, no, they were right. Yeah. And there's no way in which you can describe it. Yeah, just go do it.
Yeah, and enjoy the journey, because that's exactly what it is. I think as well, the importance. My son's a little bit older now, but just understanding. And I've got friends with younger kids, and they'll describe those moments now like you're in 9 weeks, and then all of a sudden it's 12 weeks, and then it's 12 months, and there's all these different experiences and the terrible twos and all those different ages that you come across, and next thing they start school, and then it's onwards and upwards, and it's just a continuous journey that my son turned 30 last week, and it's still a journey. It's still,
it doesn't stop.
It's an evolution. Right? No, it absolutely doesn't.
No, it doesn't. You're a dad forever. That's
exactly.
You're a dad forever.
And then next thing you know, there might be some grandchildren coming along the way as well. So
that's it. I heard this wonderful thing the other day. It's like when you're a dad, especially to, a son or a daughter, but you're training your replacement. I thought that was a really cool way of thinking about it. Your replacement in the world, you know what I mean? So you want to try and, do your best for your son or your daughter and be that example to make them the best person so that they're better than you when you leave. That's the way. That was a really cool thing.
I like that. Yeah. I like that. The most practical advice that you've ever received?
That I've ever received? I would say the best practical advice I've received, it just comes down to having a go, and then be willing to have a go. Be willing to have a go and take on feedback. That's probably the biggest thing, is just willing to have that first crack at something, and then be humble enough to receive that feedback. I think that's probably the best practical advice I've ever received, because I think a lot of people can be a little bit standoffish. I think some people can always hang back a little bit. And I tend to do that still sometimes. But that advice of being that first one in to go and answer a question or to do something and then get that feedback, and actually get a real life sort of external feedback to what you're doing, it can only have a positive effect on what you're doing.
It can be tough accepting the feedback.
Yes, that just comes back to what we were talking about before about that humility, right?
Yeah, I was going to say humbling.
Oh, yeah, because it can hit you. Sometimes they can hit your ego, and it can hurt. But you just got to put that aside, because most of the time, if you're hanging around with the right people and with the right crowd, they want the best for you.
Yeah.
And so you've got to take on that feedback, and you've got to know that it's coming from somewhere, from love. It's coming from somewhere they want to see you improve. And if you have that, if you have those people around you, man, feedback's easy to take from those people, because it's like, all right, well, I'll be better for it.
Exactly. So growing up, did you have a childhood idol or someone you looked up to?
Other than Darren Lockyer? Obviously look up to my parents. I look up to mum and dad. They went through some of the things that they had to go through were very challenging, but they were able to do everything for us in terms of provide shelter, provide food. They were able to do all that sort of stuff and still provide me with all the opportunities that I have. So they're always, as a kid, I think not everyone's, but I think most people's, it starts with their parents. And I can't think of anyone else that I would say is one single idol. I think there was a few teachers, and there was a few people who definitely helped me along the way. I can remember one particular teacher who used to stay back, and he every single day, except on Fridays, he would stay back after school, and he would just be a tutor to everyone. He basically just sit in a classroom, and you could go there after school, and you could sit there for an hour. And while I was trying to get through physics at high school at the time, and try and do that sort of stuff, so having those people around. Yeah. Just to show you that sort of sense of community, and sort of that giving. He didn't have to stay there. He could have went home, but he stayed for an hour and a half and just helped kids with maths and physics problems, and just wanted to see us all do well. So having people like that give and give and give, like my parents, like that certain teacher, I think they're big role models to have.
How good. Have you ever met Darren Lockyer?
Nah, I haven't yet. I saw him once at an airport.
Should have to organise. You're actually the second guest that's had him up there. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So I'll have to organise for him to come in the studio one time.
If he comes in the studio, I'll be here. You can have me back anytime.
So what drives you, Rob? What gives you inspiration?
Family. That's a big one. And like my family now. Every day it's pretty simple. It's they're at the top of my value list in terms of who I'm working for, what I'm working for every day. I need to be better for myself as a person so that I can be a better example for little Tommy. I've got to continue to progress my career so that I can give them, my wife, my family, the best life possible. That's easy answer. That's what it's all about, man. That's what it's all about.
That's awesome. Big responsibilities now.
Absolutely.
Got the father shoes on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Your favourite saying?
Ooh. Not sure if I have a favourite saying, but I do. I'm a big Michael Jordan fan. He's got quite a few. He's got some long ones though that I can't remember off the top of my head and quote yet at this point. Put me on the spot. You have to come back to that one.
No, mate, it's all right. What are you passionate about?
I'm passionate about sport. That's probably been my original passion. That's the first thing that pops to mind. As a kid growing up, I'm very passionate about sport and competing. I was probably a little bit too competitive as a kid.
Is that possible?
Well, for some people they would say yes. I look back and I think they tried to pull me back a little bit too much. But there's that sort of a little bit of a tall poppy syndrome that goes around sometimes if you're winning too much. I love to compete. I used to love to compete. I think that's sort of come down my list a little bit. I think that ego side of things sort of just dulls that a little bit. The competition's with myself now, you know what I mean? So sport's definitely a passion. In general, just my family, I would say, is a passion. I would say working with people every day in terms of trying to get them better, get them out of pain, get them moving better, get them stronger, get them working towards that goal. That's a passion of mine. So health, I would say, my own health as well as other people's, trying to instigate change in that way is definitely my passion.
All right. Describe the role process and consistency play in that rehabilitation process with and to ensure a successful outcome.
Oh, it's huge. It's absolutely massive. You could go into so many different elements, but from a rehab standpoint, consistency is a thing we try and breed the most of. Like if we're talking about anything, if we can find a way to get you to consistently take up the information that we're providing, take up the exercises, take up the little bit of education around what you should do each day, and you can put that into practice and do it every day, you're going to get better quicker. So we know it comes down to exercise a lot when it comes to rehabilitation from a physiotherapy standpoint. And when you're trying to create an adaptation, or you're trying to make something stronger, you're trying to make something faster, or you're trying to help something heal, it requires you to provide the body with consistent stimulus every single day in some way. That way is dependent upon every single circumstance, whether it's an injury or whether you're working towards performance. So just that's where consistency really comes in. If you lose that consistency, timelines drag out. Things take longer to heal. Things take longer to get stronger, and you're not going to hit those lofty goals that a lot of people have. And so that's where consistency really comes in.
Yeah. Well said, Mark. Couldn't agree more. Had a few injuries, and just understanding that process and adhering to that process and the importance on that, just to ensure that rehabilitation time frame is minimised.
Absolutely. So,
would you share a challenging moment that you faced in your life, and how and what got you through it?
I've been pretty blessed in my life so far in terms of having anything really devastating in my life happen. So I totally understand that, and I'm super grateful for that. So when I say what's going to be challenging for me, it's probably not going to seem as challenging as some things for some other people out there. But I'm very grateful and understanding that that has happened. Challenging, I would say probably just the challenges that I've had to go through to. It sounds a little bit fruity and whatnot, but kind of going and trying in that process of trying to become, like I would say, a man or become a dad. This whole process, that's probably been one of the most challenging things, is really growing up and really being able to take on responsibility. It's a hard thing to do. I think it probably wasn't so much back in the day, and I think as society's gotten the way it is, people might say it's a little bit softer. I think it makes it a lot harder for young people to be able to take on that responsibility. And so I think that's been quite a journey over even probably the last several years, to be able to cop that and be able to actually take on the responsibility and of other people, for yourself, whatever the case may be. That's probably the biggest thing. So in terms of that, I would say just that process. And that process is not done by any means, and I'm not sure if it ever will be. I'm sure it continues to grow. Responsibilities change and whatnot. But that process, that's definitely been it.
Well, hats off to you, because I think just this level of maturity that you actually need to reach to have the awareness of that is a big thing. So, well done.
Oh, and there's a lot of people helping me with that. I have a lot of very self-aware, a lot of really smart people around me that can help me with that, and I think that's really important. And I think that's I can't say that enough about the people that I have around me, and I think that everyone needs to look at doing that if they want to succeed, if they want to develop. Put people around you, find those people, get them around you, and just give to them. I think that's probably one of the things that we don't do enough with those types of people. We tend to try and take, and you got to give something. And so for sometimes, for your mentors and your coaches, that giving is just you doing what they say. That's what coaches and mentors love. They want you to do well. So it's weird. So if you just listen to them and do well, the coaches will want to continue to work with you. And some people don't understand that. I don't have to give presents or give anything in particular to my coaches or mentors that I have. It's about they just want me to follow their advice and put things into action. That's it.
And do.
Yeah, and that's it. Do. Exactly. Not say anything, actually do it. And that's,
do really exactly what they say.
Yeah.
To do.
Yep.
And when.
And how high, how far, how do you want me to go? Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
Goals and dreams, Rob. What are your top three?
I guess I break it into, so professionally, I would love to continue to build up my career within Inspire. I don't have any lofty ambitions of actually growing away from Inspire at this point. I love the place, and I would love to be able to continue to work my way up. Maybe be a bit of a business owner, something like that, have a bit of a share in the place. I love what it's about. I love the people that are there, and unless something there changes, I don't see that changing. So as far as professionally, that's where I'd like to see myself. Still continuing to practice physio, be a head physiotherapist and business owner, and Inspire would probably be it. I'd love to. One of the other things I really want to do that I didn't get the chance to do during COVID is I want to be able to go and travel a lot. So I want to see many places around the world. I want to experience it. Europe, certain parts of Asia, back over to the US, Africa even as well, would be great. So I'd love to be able to get around and see as many places as possible and experience as much as I can. I'm a big foodie, so I'd love to get around and check out some of the other cuisines. And third one, I think it just comes down to family. I just want to see my kids do well. If the goal that I would have is I would like to see my kids grow up to be great parents, and I think that's probably the biggest goal, biggest way in which you can see if you achieved, or if you were a good parent, if you were a good dad, is how they are with their kids, and just sort of leave a little bit of a legacy that way. That would be probably my 3 biggest goals.
That last one's got a bit of longevity to it.
Absolutely, and and I know it sounds crazy because I never thought this far ahead. No, but I think it's the only way in which you can measure it, and I really want to be a great dad. So, and that's the way to measure it. Then that's the way to measure it. And you won't. And to be honest, you won't know probably till I die, and I'll probably never know. So
that's great, mate. Well done.
There you go.
So nutrition, how important is it, and what do you feed your mind and your body?
Nutrition is huge. I notice nutrition's always been a challenge for me. Like I said, I'm a foodie, so I love my food. But also being busy, it makes it. I've gone through ebbs and flows throughout my whole career. As I get busier, you know how hard sometimes it can be to make sure that not necessarily I'm very good at choosing what to put in. It's just about, am I eating enough actually? So that's always been a little bit more of a challenge. So but I do find, and I know that when I'm hydrated well, when I'm eating enough, doing all those things, my mental clarity is off the charts. And so I really try and push myself to get that done. I'd say I've definitely been better at it over the last couple of years, but definitely early in my career, not so much. So I've seen both sides of the coin, and I know that I want my body to be hydrated, well-fed, not underfed, but or more closer to I actually have to eat more than undereat. That's one of the things that some people don't realize, is that they actually undereat, and that's why they feel so rubbish most of the time. Yep.
I had a dietitian tell me exact same thing. Yep. On those heavier training days, you really just need to up those calories and ensure that you're eating enough.
Absolutely. And even for myself as a physio, being on my feet all day, you don't actually realize how much I actually burn, because I'm not sitting around a desk. I'm actually moving, I'm pushing, I'm pulling, I'm doing all these things. And when someone explained it to me, I was like, that makes sense, right? So you've got to be eating more, and got to be drinking plenty of water. Water's huge.
Hydration.
Yeah. And it's one of the ones that, like I said, ebbs and flows with me. But I know that this is one of the reasons why I got to be more disciplined. So discipline can always be better. We've got to be better with that.
I heard I had actually a clinical nutritionalist in here on the podcast recently, and the technology is telling us that you need to drink 35 mils of water for every kilo of body weight. Yep. Which I found really intriguing, because a lot of people are thinking, well, you drink 2 litres of water a day, but if you weigh 50 kilos or you weigh 150 kilos, well, the level of fluid intake has got to be increased accordingly. Yeah.
Another little stat for you around that. So that's 100% right, by the way. I've heard that before, but I actually heard a stat today where then if you're working out in the sun, so for every hour that you work in the sun, you have to throw in another 700 mils.
Wow.
That's a lot, isn't it?
That is a lot.
That's a lot of water. Yeah. Another 700 mils.
Per hour.
Because that's how much you'll sweat in the Australian sun.
Yeah. Maybe that's 700 mil up in North Queensland.
Well, maybe. That's a lot of water though, isn't it? It's a lot of water.
Incredible. So what's your definition of frustration? My
definition of frustration would be, it's kind of almost like insanity. It's like when you just keep trying, when you run up your head against the wall trying to do the same thing over and over again. That's frustration. It's also insanity. It's also the same definition. But I think that's definitely me, where I've tried to, do something, and then, you kind of, that cognitive dissonance kicks in, and you think you're trying it a different way, but you're really not. You're just avoiding the problem, and you're still avoiding the problem. You're just coming up with a solution that's not really a solution. It's the same thing you were saying before. And so the frustrating part has always been being able to just see the problem initially, and finding the solution and finding the appropriate solution, the right solution for it. I'd say that's probably that's definitely my definition of frustration.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's having a strong mind and a strong body mean for you?
Oh, it's massive. So, I mean, for myself, I sort of pride myself on setting an example for my patients. And the people that I see every day, they're people who are coming in, athletes or weekend warriors or mums and dads or brothers and sisters who are just, they have injuries, they've suffered musculoskeletal and sports-wise. So, and a lot of them, their activity or their sport, it's bred within their psychology, right? So they, if they can't play their sport, if they can't go for their run, if they can't do their gardening, if they can't do that active thing, it's not so much that they're worried about the pain. It's about, what does the pain stop? So when I look at all of that, I've got to be able to, I've got to make sure that in myself, I'm healthy. All right. So that's where the strong mind comes in. Strong body, sorry. So make sure that I'm exercising, make sure that I'm eating well, because then that's easy. That's, that's the stuff that, you can tell people to do, but it's the strong mind part that's probably the most important. Having good emotional control, being able to take that feedback, being able to be humble, being able to be grateful, all those types of things, and be persistent, be able to fight through when things are tough. These are all things that you have to show examples of and be able to do, because you're going to ask your patients to do it. That's why it's really important. I'm going to ask patients to exercise. I'm going to ask patients to eat healthier. I'm going to ask patients to, hey, this is going to be painful for 3 weeks, but we got to fight through it, because at the end of the day, in that 3 weeks after, you're going to be feeling so much better. But you got to set that expectation and be like, hey, no, this is going to be painful. Not that I know it's going to be hard, because you might not have gone through it, but set the expectation. This is the way it's going to be. We just got to fight through this together, and just got to get through it together. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So having that example, and then being able to, I guess, coach patients through it. If you can't do it yourself, then you can't coach a patient through it effectively.
So just on that psychological front, is it also difficult when you do have a patient and they obviously love their sport, they love their activity, and all of a sudden they receive an injury and they're going to be out for 10 months and they may not be able to physically exercise. And so is that also a little bit of a challenge that you guys have to deal with?
Absolutely. That's probably, and this is where physios get a bad rap a lot of the times, because a lot of physios, they have the reputation of, oh, you're injured? All right, well, just don't play that sport, or just don't do this. And they don't give any substitution of what the athlete can do. Like I said, for an athlete who can't play that sport, that's their life. That absolutely, from a mental standpoint, just shatters them. So what I find, and what I've built my career on, is actually trying to find what I just find a substitute, or what can they do? All right. So even if they've got a busted leg, well, we don't have to use that leg. We'll use the other leg. We can still train the other leg. We can still train your upper body. We can still train your core. We can still train your balance. We can still, maybe there's a mental side of it, like referees, for instance. So if you have a referee, you have to train them cognitively as well. So they have to be able to be fatigued and then do cognitive problems in their head while they're fatigued, like they would on a field. There's all sorts of things you can do. And then there's all sorts of ways to get around injuries as well. You can exercise in a moon boot. You can work certain muscles if it's an ankle or something like that, and try and just find ways in which you can keep that person active. Now, will they enjoy it as much? Probably not. Look, playing their sport, that's what they love. There's always going to be a mental, psychological aspect through it. But, there's an effect in exercise and playing sport that we get that's just chemical, right? It's the whole, dopamine, and we can get into all that. So we got to find a way to still instigate those chemicals and instigate those feelings within the athlete, keep them going and make them feel like they're working towards something. And I always try and say, like, I'm always sort of saying to them, look, we can get you to the point where you're actually going to be stronger after this. If we're working on this, and this, we can hone in on this part, and then we'll come back once you're able to load that leg again and get that strong, and you'll come back stronger in 12 months time. And it's hard for athletes to believe that at the start, but then they eventually see it if they commit to the process. You just have to get them to stick to that. And you have to know what makes them tick. Athletes are definitely one where you got to figure out what makes them tick. It's kind of like the old racehorse, you got to figure out what gets them into form. And yeah, once you've done that, then yeah, the athletes love it. It makes that whole process a lot more enjoyable. They get a lot more joy out of it.
Yeah, mate, I love it. Finding the positive in every situation.
Absolutely.
Your favourite activity, Rob? What do you like to do?
It doesn't. It's one of those things, right? It doesn't feel good at the time, and sometimes I go, man, I don't want to do this. But exercising is one of the things I genuinely love doing. I love the feeling afterwards anyway.
So what exercise do you do?
Mainly training in the gym. So resistance training. I try and get a run in and a little bit here and there as well. I do love like sort of conditioning or HIIT style training, but I do probably less of that right now, just with the programming I'm in. But I do like that style of training. So I do enjoy exercise. Really, I'm one of those weird nerdy people that I just enjoy what I do as well. So, I don't actually really, other than hang out with my family and hang out with friends socially outside, I don't really do too much these days. And it's just because I generally just like going and doing what I do, which is super nerdy and probably hard to understand, but I just do.
Good on you, mate. Appreciate your authenticity. Yeah. If you could change one thing in the world, Rob, what would that be?
That's a big question.
It's a big question.
It's huge. If I could change one thing in the world.
Do you want to come back to it?
I'd probably say, that's tough. That's a tough question.
Do you want to come back to it?
Let's come back.
Okay.
Let's come back.
Success habits. Name 3 things that you do consistently every day.
I can't say every day. I personally think I don't do this every day because I do have a rest day, but training is a big one because exercise in general is not just for your body, it's for your brain. That's actually probably more of why I train and why I love training. It's for your brain. Your brain is a muscle. Training basically takes oxygen away from it and makes it have to work. Your brain works better when you exercise. So without a doubt, I'm always better when I'm trained. I've gone through ebbs and flows in my career where I stopped training for periods of time and Wayne just goes, you're an idiot, and basically says you got to get back training, and then all of a sudden everything just flips the switch. So training is always one. If you take everything back and you look after the human, the health of the human, that sets the foundation for everything going up. I would say that, what else do I do? Preparation. So for me, I sit down at the start of every week and I basically outline my whole week with tasks of all the tasks that I've got to do, as well as, all the, I'll break it down into, okay, I'm going to read this, or I'm going to listen to this. I'm going to try and get this much in, basically prepare my whole week and basically have it written down. So I write things. I don't type them anymore. I write everything. Once again, big difference when you write something. I find I remember it so much better. I find it's way more effective. It goes into the brain, and that's way better. I guess and for the third thing, probably one of the things I've done recently is I actually do this thing where if I listen to something, if I listen to a podcast, if I listen to anything, I try and speak it out loud and teach it to my phone. Like I'll put it on like voice record, and I'll put it on voice to text. And I'll see what it spits back out at me, because I like to see what I can remember and what it sounds like and what words I'm using and what my communication's like, because I want to be able to teach these things to other people. So I've got to listen back to it and listen to my own voice, which is, if you ever listen to your own voice and listen to sometimes how you explain things or speak, it's not good. And so it makes you have to change. It was one of the things I've been putting off. It's one of the things that my coach or mentor has sort of told me to do, and I've put it off because it sounds awful. But I've started to do more of it, and I find it a really good way to. It's like anything. You don't know. You can't tell you've mastered something until you can teach it. So that's the true test of mastery. So, and I'm not saying I'm a master at any of those things, but I figure if I can try and speak things out loud and communicate them and practice that, it can only get better.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that before, but
There you
I should
go.
try that. It sounds like a challenge.
Give it a run. It's, I hope you like the sound of your voice better than I do.
Your biggest regret, do you have one?
I can't say so. I know that's probably a lot of people would say that, but I can't say I have a big regret. It's something I look back on and go, I wish I didn't do that, because everything's got me to this point, right? Everything leads you to this point. So all the mistakes that you perceivably make, or all the things that you do, lead you to the point you are at. I'm pretty happy with where I'm at, with where I'm at this point anyway, and where I think I'm going. So I'm pretty happy. I don't think there's any regrets.
All right. So we'll spin that around 180 degrees. What are you most proud of?
I mean, most proud of, I guess, my son or my family is probably the first thing that comes to mind is what I'm proud of. I guess creating or being a part of. I guess I'm also a little bit proud of, I guess, where I can sort of see where I've come to. Not to say that I'm anywhere near where I want to be, but just seeing that. I know what kind of work's been put into that mentally, and a little bit physically. I could physically be better, but physically, what goes into that. And I think I'm not satisfied with where I'm at, but I'm content. Yeah.
It's the journey, right? And you've come so far and you've still got a long way to go.
Absolutely.
All right, mate. We all know laughing's very good for our health. What makes you laugh, and do you laugh very often?
Yes, I do. I got people every day who I speak to who make me laugh. It's crazy some of the stories you hear with patients, and you might get someone who's been doing an exercise wrong, and then they show you what that exercise looks like, and you're like, that's not the way we did it in clinic last week. That's not the way we did it. So those sort of things always make me laugh. This is like a little bit of a guilty pleasure, but I love, because I'm a big American sports fan. We've talked before the session, and I'm actually from there, so I'm a big Chicago fan. But I love sports talk radio over in the US, and a lot of the times that sort of stuff, that's what I enjoy and that's what I laugh at. And then just being around mates, we have a good time. That's probably the one I get most of my laughs in.
Are you much a reader?
I'm not. So this is probably one of the things I would love to get into more of, but my attention span sometimes is terrible. This is why I'm great with podcasts, because I can put them on in the car, and I just, I get 10 minutes or 15 minutes when I'm driving to work, 10, 15 minutes back. I can cover half an hour of content. Maybe if I'm feeding Tommy, I can get another little bit of content in. I just use those times to fill my time with getting information. Reading is hard to do that. I don't think I can read a book and drive. So, I think just from an attention span standpoint and just the busyness of my life right now, reading is hard to get in. Not that I don't believe that it's a very useful tool, but more just because of the way my life is. Podcasts and things like that just generally work better for me.
Well, I might reframe this. So instead of telling us the 3 best books that you've read, maybe you can give us the 3 best podcasts that you listen to.
List, absolutely. The Game, Alex Hormozi. Big favorite of mine. That's a bit more businessy, salesy sort of style.
Yep.
I'll go, make me choose. I like Modern Wisdom with Chris Williamson. He has some great content as well. And then there's actually a dad one that I listen to called Dad Work, which is it's a little bit different.
A dad podcast.
A dad podcast. Dad Work. There's some interesting parts in it that and you just got to take things away from it. But I find it really interesting, and they talk to a lot of people, and they talk about messages that some messages that I sort of kind of go along with. But it's like anything, right? You can't agree with everything you listen to. I just find that there's some things in there that are really helpful in terms of me understanding as a dad.
All right. As a physio, what's the most practical tip or advice that you give us? I'd imagine that, when you're seeing a number of patients, that is there some commonality on some issues that people struggle with, or piece of advice that you could sort of generalise for us?
To patients. I would say find an exercise routine that suits you best and be consistent with it is really the biggest thing. And then I would say probably seek a little bit of help in terms of what that program looks like, just so we can achieve balance. I think you can get a little bit too far with your training if you're only training in one way. So, if you're just a bodybuilder doing beach weights and you're just doing biceps, pecs, and doing all the standard stuff every day, you're probably going to end up at some point on my table with a bit of an injury. Now, whether you come in or not, maybe you're just too brash and egotistic to come in, maybe. But you will have some type of injury because in general, you're probably not getting a full balanced program. So I would say find an exercise routine that's consistent and just get a little bit of help. You don't have to, you don't have to spend a lot of money. You don't have to see someone even every week. Just find someone who knows what they're talking about. Help them put together that program for you because it's so important. Like, why wouldn't you spend a little bit of cash on, just trying to find a program and an exercise routine that's not going to get you injured, that's going to give you the best bang for buck. That way you can look good, feel good, strong mind, strong body, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, because you blokes at Inspire, you're not even just physiotherapists, but you guys have exercise scientists and exercise physiologists as well that obviously can help.
Yeah. So we've got, within Inspire, we've got physiotherapists, exercise physiologists, exercise scientists, which they're sort of in our exercise department. And we also have dietitians there as well. So all university qualified guys. And the way we kind of, work, we work in this integrated model of allied health rehabilitation. So let's say someone comes in with an injury, they'll, in that acute stage, like that real acute stage, you'll see in a physio first, because as physios, our specialty is being able to get a diagnosis. It's being able to get people through that early stages of pain, get their range of motion back, get them starting to do some basic exercise. But from there, and I think this is where we got to be, this is the reason why I think Inspire does this so well, is because we understand our lanes of what we're good at. And I think if we look at the way physios are trained, I think from that mid to late stage rehab, this is where we can really lean on our exercise phys and our exercise scientists to really take up that next part. Some physios are really good. They've expanded their knowledge, they've expanded their studying, and they're able to continue to go ahead and to finish off that rehabilitation themselves. But early on, especially as a physio, it was really helpful to have a couple senior ex-phys guys who I could go, all right, I've got them to this point, I'm going to refer you on to him, and then I'm going to go watch, all right, I'm going to go see what they do, and then I can get a bit more of an understanding of what that looks like. So I've learned a heap from working with those guys, and they can then use their specialty of going from that mid to late stage rehab and then into performance if necessary for that person if they're an athlete. And that's the way we kind of work, is in that integrated practice.
I love it, mate. The full circle approach.
Full circle. And then dietetics just fits in there wherever. So they can fit in all facets. So dietitians might work on the inflammatory stage in that early phase of injury. There's a lot of foods and a lot of things, supplements even, that you can use in that early stage. And then obviously you can go all the way through to performance, whether it be weight loss for a person or gaining muscle mass or whatever the case may be. We know how important food is with that. So it fits in everywhere.
All right. So we're going to come back to that change one thing in the world. Have any inspiration around that yet?
Big one. Look, I think as human beings, I think even just from if you look at the way we've always been as humans throughout history, if you just look at our general way in which we deal with each other is pretty horrible in reality.
So be nicer to each other.
Be nicer to each other. Yeah. Like, you just in general. Like, really, like... I sort of think my mentor actually said this the other day. Like, imagine what it must look like to the animals around the place when they look at what we do. Like, if they were switched on enough to be able to actually go, what are these guys doing? Like, of course, they hunt and they eat and they all sorts of things from a circle of life standpoint, but we just do it from a cruelty standpoint, and a lot of things are really not great in that sphere. So, be nicer to each other.
Be nicer, be kinder.
Be kinder.
It's not that hard.
Yeah, be empathetic. Understand where the other person's coming from. Understanding is huge. That's something I've done a little bit of listening to about recently, is just about understanding. And I think if you think everyone wants to be understood themselves, but no one wants to understand the person next to them. And I think that's really, really key. I think if you can understand the people around you more, that goes a lot further than, expecting everyone or hoping that everyone tries to understand you. I think you can get a lot more out of it.
Yeah, exercise a little bit more. Emotional intelligence, I think, might be the technical term for it.
Absolutely. Emotional intelligence, that's severely lacking.
Yes.
Severely lacking.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time. I know you're a very, very busy man, new dad. Again, congratulations, and mate, really appreciate all your insights and your stories.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No worries at all. Thank you very much, Magnus. I appreciate your time, mate.
See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining in on today's episode, and I hope this Strong Mind, Strong Body series empowers and inspires you. Make sure you've subscribed to our channel and leave a comment if you enjoyed today's podcast. You can also check out our website for more info about M26FIT at m26fit.au.